Hey everyone, we're going.
What?
Hey everyone, Garrett here.
I'm Kyle. What are you doing?
I don't know. We
You
should
don't
probably
do
say
that.
our names.
Oh, okay.
We haven't done
Jeez.
just a React video in a while.
Yeah, no, it's
Our friend Scott Johnson got to interview Chris Metzen for an official promotional piece for World of Warcraft: The War Within, and we just wanted to watch it. And listen. I know.
you know.
I know it's MMOs. We love poking fun at MMOs. We love getting a little tribalistic, talking some shit in the comments below. However, Scott Johnson's our friend, and I wouldn't be doing this without him. So you behave yourselves in the comments.
Oh yeah, he was in my D&D game for like 5 years.
You be nice.
I didn't think Zerglings, morphing into orcs would work, but
No, I didn't either.
it's been a privilege working on Zergorks.
Hi, I'm Scott Johnson, the host of the World of Warcraft podcast, The Instance, and today I'm sitting here with...
He is technically again, so that is true.
Oh,
Because his first episode hadn't come out yet when he said this.
Already.
But now it's out.
already I'm like, I wish I was behind the camera. This camera should be a lot higher. You shouldn't see people's nostrils.
What? Oh.
It's
It's
really
from
low
below.
on Scott. It's
Huh.
really low
Chris
on Scott.
Metzen. Chris,
Production
Scott,
issues.
it's good to see you.
Oh,
man.
wait,
good to
maybe
see
they were
you.
just leaning
How
back.
you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's a crazy time. We're about to launch The War Within and, really kick off this massive Worldsoul saga, which is a trip because, I haven't shipped a video game in, 8 or 9 years. So it's kind of wild going through this process again and just kind of feeling that anticipation, excited to see what people think. And when the product finally gets into people's hands, it's one of my favorite parts of the whole development process.
Well, let me ask you this question, because you reminded me of how long this has been going. I remember firing up the World of Warcraft OG vanilla World of Warcraft and
God, he sounds so much different on a lab mic.
Does he?
I'm so used to Scott on a radio microphone.
Oh, yeah, I guess he does sound a little different.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like Scott, but
Yeah.
all of the bass is missing.
Now, it's important to note that Chris Metzen didn't do nothing during this time. He did ship an entire 5th edition D&D module.
Ouroboros.
Yeah, very successful in terms of
Extreme-
Kickstarter and all
extremely
that.
successful Kickstarter. Yeah. So he was getting down with his
Lots
bad
of voice
self.
working too. He was doing that, Dragon Prince?
Dragon Prince, yeah.
And then a little bit of Stormgates and, working in his
He
buddies.
did stuff at Stormgate.
Yeah, he's a demon or something in
Oh.
there. So he does some unit voices and all that.
classic.
He was doing voice acting.
Okay.
seeing a trailer that said, celebrating 10 years of Warcraft. And I remember then thinking, you gotta be kidding me, that's insane. That's how long I've been playing these games. And now we're 20 years on top of that, 30 years total. That has to be a little overwhelming, especially given that
that's right.
you were here for most of that, had a bit of a break.
Yeah, I'm 37. Yeah, I guess that would be accurate.
Oh God, I hate that.
I didn't play Warcraft before 3. I went back to 2 and I was like, what? But
I tried playing 2 after 3 and
Yeah.
I quit.
yeah, it was.
It is crusty.
There was no pathing, so you would click on the other side of the trees and they just walk into the trees and think they were going in a straight line. It was wrong. It was all wrong.
Now you're back. Does that weigh on you? Do you feel the heat from the time? Like, how do you feel about how that entire process has gone?
I don't feel kind of heat or like the weight of time, relative to expectation. It's really weird, being a little older, a little wiser. Feels like 100 years ago, feels like 5 minutes ago, all at the same time. So when I look at this Worldsoul saga, the stuff we're building right now, thankfully there's an immediacy of it all to me. It's just, we live and die by, how good, the things we're sculpting in real time is. Trying to hold it all in your head.
Yeah, he's a DM. I can't help but respond to Chris Metzen. That's just like, I love watching him think. I'm into that. Like,
Yeah. This is classic Chris Metzen.
Yeah.
Trying to think, trying to get also like media marketing thought right out the gate. I'm already happy with this. It doesn't seem overly scripted. It does seem like they actually did sit down and kind of figured out what they were
they're
gonna
legit
say.
friends, Scott.
Yeah,
and Chris.
yeah. If you haven't seen it, and this is not sponsored or anything, but Scott's done a multiple interviews now with Chris Metzen, where it's just the two of them kind of hashing it out, and they're really good. They get really personal. Most of all of them, I think, came out after his retirement, so it's in
Yeah.
the period of time where he was not at Blizzard. I think.
Yeah,
Maybe,
he was
maybe it started.
telling that story after he left, the stresses of Warlord of Draenor and the community involvement and all that. It's a fascinating watch if you're into anything sort of creative, thinking about the internet in like 2017 and kind of when he took off out of that environment too.
I think I can give it this. I think they're my single favorite interviews ever done with a game developer.
They're about a topic I really care about too.
Really well done, and it's exactly what I want from an interview, which is not scripted, like the stuff we were seeing coming before Dragonflight. And I'm sure that stuff exists for War Within as well.
Oh, it does. And there are comments that it feels scripted. Who are these people? Like, those are extremely brave developers that have taken their personal time to walk out on stage and be in front of an audience with, in that case, an interviewer who doesn't know them personally, like this situation. And Chris Metzen obviously has a ton of media training, in addition to just being the BlizzCon guy for all those years.
He's professionally affable.
Yes.
Yeah.
The weight of the past, it's kind of beyond me. I can't really wrap my head around like all the history all at once. I mean, there's kids graduating college right now named Jaina and Anduin. It's like, what? I often find it's not all that helpful to overdwell on, in the course of development. You want to keep it focused on what you're doing at the time. So that's how I try and balance it out. One day I'm sure I'll look back and go, wow. Working on this game again has really given me more of an immediate sense of gratification that just kind of keeps you focused in the moment. And that's generally, where my head is at on a day-to-day basis.
When you mentioned people naming their kids after characters that you created, that you named, and that you developed and saw grow and evolve and everything, something that's interesting about War Within so far, to me, is we're seeing the gang kind of back together in a much more complete way. So you're seeing Anduin talking to Thrall with Jaina nearby, and Khadgar, my favorite worst wizard of all time, but I love him. He's there. They're all there. And
okay, props that they let that through.
Yes, but also Scott Nash Maggard of the Solar Mines, you never used your sorcery points. I think you're being a little hard on Khadgar.
Kyle is making reference to a long play D&D that he got to do with Scott and the character that Scott played. But Scott's not wrong. Khadgar's a shit wizard.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
I thought Khadgar was so cool before they brought Khadgar back to World of Warcraft.
Well, the ball thing and all that, they know what they've done.
And I really like Legion, but Khadgar overstayed his welcome.
He talks a lot.
It was too much Khadgar.
He's a repeating talking head.
Maybe that's just what's going on with Wicklemot and everybody. Maybe there's just too much Wicklemot.
Don't bring that into this.
What that tells me is that we're in for some
I'm rewilding to 14 all the time.
A lot of strings, a lot of stuff that has been out there for 20 years that will finally converge in some meaningful ways. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
I'll break it down. When I came back, I'm like, all right, let's go. World of Warcraft. Like, what do we got? What are we making? And they were in, they had already been doing War Within, or what would become, War Within, for about 10 months. While I liked what they were building and thought it was a cool next chapter in WoW, in my head, I'm like, for the 20th anniversary of WoW, like, I want to have a feeling, like whatever the product becomes, I want to have a feeling of pulling all the toys out of the toy box, right? They like older characters, the kind of macro themes that, the series has been about all these years.
Illyria's
Titans, old gods, light and dark.
Who's Illyria?
Sylvana, one of the Windrunner sisters.
Oh, the Sylvana sister that's Void all...
Yes.
Getting weird with the Void?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to feel like the anniversary was capturing, like this kind of mix of all of the core flavors. And ultimately proofing out that there has been this storyline all the way through, that everything kind of converges into this crescendo. And in a very real way, how the War Within was shaping up, they're like, yeah, dude, like there's no way on earth, right? That that's going to divert the course of Mighty Rivers. There's no way to get that done on top of what we're already in production on. So that begat this idea of a larger saga. I'm like, okay, well, what if we can get there in X number of steps? What if we can build to something just ridiculous, but it might take a couple expansions to do. And somehow folks, bought in on it, like, whoa, that's wild, let's go. And so Taryn Gregory and I, Taryn's our, principal story developer. So we work together every day, and you know, we talk a lot about like we want to involve all these epic characters, but like when they're in the scene, they eat all the oxygen and they could just go off and solve for X. So it's this balance between including all these mega characters and then finding clever ways to get them out of the way, you know, so that the player has maximum agency. And
that makes me kind of excited to hear. That's something that really annoys me in ensemble storytelling.
It's a big thought.
If you don't know how to contend with that.
Yeah, why doesn't Superman just fly into Gotham and get rid of all of Batman's problems?
Yeah. I think it was a big issue. I think it was something that they clearly struggled with the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And J.J. Abrams just decided not to answer that question and not have Luke show up at all in The Force Awakens.
And it's entirely more gravitas because you are a player and you are supposed to be a part of the story. And if there's no place for you, it's one thing to watch a movie and be like, oh, that character got underutilized. Whole nother thing when you're there spending your hours participating.
Yeah, absolutely. So that makes me happy to hear.
the newer characters we're introducing have space to breathe and live.
It sounds like it is almost an advantage to come to something that had already been started. If you'd come to the end of Dragonflight and started from there, that's a little big, it's a bigger buy. It's like, well, wait a minute, where are we going now? We've been flying, okay, what does that mean? What do we do? And instead, you were presented with some beginnings, and then you got to decide where those beginnings took you.
And vector it a little bit. You know, the trick to, after all these years, creative direction, which even today, I don't know that I could do a thesis on, right? Creative direction is as unique as the person doing it and the chemistry of the team that you're working with. But kind of finding that balance again of having strong ideas and kind of saying like, I want to go this way, right? But the team had already been, kind of constructing this thing. So it's a mix of maximizing kind of the things that they are most passionate about, the ideas that they're kind of dug in on, and finding a way to bend everything towards a singular purpose, but boosting their sense of ownership.
So when you got up on stage at BlizzCon, it was pretty magical for players. I can say that for myself, and a lot of people that I know, and a lot of fans of the game saw this as a return to something. And I think we're coming off an excellent expansion in Dragonflight, but you got up and did something that surprised everybody, which was, we're not doing the normal, here comes the next expansion, here are the features, here's the storyline in its basic way. We are going to do a trilogy of essentially games. You spoke a lot about bringing, tying up some loose ends, but also creating a saga that is 3 parts, at least, and setting up really the next 20 years of the game, perhaps. That's very different than what any of you have done up to.
I'm surprised that, 20 years, like, holy crap, that's quite the declaration.
What?
Lots of people like to talk in 10 years.
Oh.
20 years in the game. Oh my goodness.
How much you buy into that?
Do you just keep like times in the number every time you hit a 30-year anniversary? You're like next 30
they
years?
don't have a plan for 20 years. They got a plan for 3 expansions.
Yeah.
That's not going to take 20. It better not take 20 years.
No, you'd have some level squishes by then too.
my back, I can't sit in a chair
You're not
for
gonna do
that
it,
long
yeah.
at that point.
To this point, did that present unique challenges to the way you wanted to create story, the way you wanted your characters to progress, these sorts of things?
Yeah, it created all sorts of complexities. Under the hood a little bit, it's interesting in how, when I came back on the team, the development process and even the conceptualizing process, like where does the expansion take place? What are the main themes? What's the focus? Really had become much more democratized, right? And people were, had kind of found their voice in the balance of all the special teams that comprise the World of Warcraft team. They'd really built the vision of Dragonflight together. So as I came back in, woohoo! And there were folks going like, oh wow, how is this going to change our dynamic? In terms of being a creative director, like, will we still have a voice? Will we still have stakes in how this all shapes out? So,
That's one of the most fascinating things he says in this entire interview.
No,
It's just like, it's true. Like, there was this kind of feeling of little discoveries in the little bit of Dragonflight I played. Obviously we can put our own narrative on top of it, the need to finish a story that already seemed in the pipeline with Shadowlands, but Dragonflight was this extremely clear, it felt like the team was saying, no, we're going to make our own expansion. We're going to do what we want to make for World of Warcraft. And inside of it, you had a lot of independent, small stories. You heard about all these small side quests, these little tiny adventures, as someone hid a little bit of flavor that maybe they cared about inside the game. And I love hearing the idea that when he came in, he didn't muscle that out of the way. It's a fascinating idea from that DM aspect that he talks about.
Well, it's a respectful thing to even be mindful of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Metzen came back, and there's pretty much like a kind of a pro and con camp. There were folks that were stoked, like, yeah, he's back, and the other people were like, this doesn't change it. I'm still not into WoW.
And I can see
no one was talking about like, well, that might be awkward for the folks that are currently the creative driving force behind World of Warcraft.
Well, and even though like the team is probably made of people who are massive fans of Warcraft 3 and these Metzen run products, I would absolutely be sitting there and be like, no, whoa, wait, hang on. Like, this is my voice.
Well, yeah, because if you're in that position at that point in time, you're assuming he's never coming back.
Yeah.
Maybe you get him in a sound booth to do some thrall lines. That's it. I mean, maybe on the way out, he sees a piece of art and he goes, oh, I would do it this way. And then that's it. That's as far as it goes.
Minor
Yeah.
consultation kind of
but
moments.
Instead, you like, and I want, oh man, now I want to know more. Like, I want to talk to creatives on the team and be like, so did you know ahead of time, or did you like open like Kotaku that day and you were like, holy shit?
It kind of sounds like that, right? Like there's very much this decision, but
either way, there's a day you didn't know and there's a day you knew, regardless of where the news came from.
I was saying earlier, kind of learning that again and learning that balance again and coming in as creative director and be like, no, I'm not here to be, hyper prescriptive with everything as I might have been as a younger dude, but like really listening for the team's instincts. Like what are they responding to? What do they want to build? What do the artists want to make? What are they imagining in terms of that pure vision? So on top of that, the complexity of, I don't think this gives up the ghost on anything. Like, we're building 3 of these at a time. This is, I'll say it. It's insane. It's insane, right? On top of the team, over a year ago, having committed to like an 8-week cadence. Yeah. So these folks we are moving so fast, and so the difference here is, guys like Taryn and I have to map out where we're going, like way ahead of the caravan, which is its own really interesting kind of work, right? Checking in with everybody. Does this feel cool? Everybody hip? I want to make sure that we're building things that, not only, again, my instinct feels are cool and fun, but that the team is proud to build and that they feel they have a voice in and, can express themselves through where the story's going, what the ideas are. We're already mapping out, whatever, 13.1 and 13.2 and how they actually play out and connect, and it's wild, but in a way you get to step back and see a far more cohesive vision and a far more refined idea over time. So, and without, without.
I mean, that speaks to me. I mean, how many damn things have come out, if any media have come out recently, and you're just like, well, you really didn't plan this out ahead of time, did you?
That's true.
It's Game of Thrones, Star Wars.
I mean,
other World of Warcraft expansions.
Ideally, this is cohesive with the whole idea of evergreen and not throwing out the entire talent trees, the entire class design every single time, the entire profession system, islands, whatever it might be that expansion had, and you went, wait, no, that wasn't bad. It just needs some work. Now this new thing is like delves. Like, can we see that evolve into something?
Yeah, that's like the thing I'm like the least hyped for, because like anytime it's something new, I'm just like, I don't need to worry about this because it'll never exist again.
Exactly.
Like, and so anytime there's a new system in World of Warcraft, I treat it as completely disposable.
Does that make more pressure or less pressure though? Now that we have to be like, no, you fix delves because we're gonna have this for this 3 expansion cycle.
It's what I like about Final Fantasy XIV is for the most part they stick to their guns and they keep the things going. We wavered a little bit with that, not having a Boja like an M-Walker, but still, like I know how many dungeons to expect. I know how many trials to expect. I know how many variations on that difficulty-wise to expect, when I'm going to get my patches, how many patches I'm going to get. I love that about 14. But that starts to get away from planning your story.
Yeah.
Spilling any beans, it's like, we're already talking about, the next few, post, upwards of like 17. Yeah. And it's just keeping the conveyor belt going, it's like we're loud and clear, the fans want more content, more regularly. So in a way, just staying ahead of that curve and making sure that everything, again, is of purpose and telling this much longer story. It's been a blast. The pure creative on Warcraft, for the past year and a half has been, how would I put it, over such a long span of time. I want to say it's one of the most nuclear creative phases I've seen for Warcraft. But the pace is wild, right? Like the pace is wild. And it's like I ain't 30 anymore, so we joke around all the time like, we need to start instituting, company naps in the middle of the afternoon for the old folks. But it has been pretty amazing.
That's a great way of thinking about it. Speaking of personal connections to characters and story, somebody close to you, who I think is a very wise human, once said, online somewhere, that Chris is Anduin in some ways, kind of worn out, beaten up by a straight period of like nonstop work, right? But also on the other end of it, he's a little bit back to being Thrall again. And those two characters represent these two parts of who this person is. How much of these characters moving forward or even in the past have represented you where you were in your life? Like some people say, well, the early versions of these characters are they were so metal. Like even Tauren chieftains, they look like, these metal dudes and everything. Yeah. And now they're aging, right? They're maturing. They're moving on in the world. Like you are, like everyone who's worked on this does. Like that's time. Do you think that's a fair thing to say, that we'll see these characters change and evolve in the same way that maybe you have, and they're kind of your avatars?
Yeah, no, I know where you're going. So there's kind of an A and a B there. Like the B, which is easier, is certainly we want to push these characters forward. We want to show some aging. We are currently doing that. But yeah, we talk about that a lot. There are many new characters over the arc of the saga that we don't want to be just one-off. We want them to be, pals and, working together to, solve these big problems.
I just hope we don't have to go to Thrall's wedding again or deal with Thrall having a kid again.
Oh, yeah, there are certainly things we can point at and be like, a little on the nose for, wanting to express yourself.
That being said,
in the game,
it did lead to when Thrall kills Garrosh being really landing.
There were elements that worked.
I mean, did you mean that literally? Was
the elements
pun, was
that
the pun
okay?
intended?
No, there was no. I honestly perceive it stronger in a property like StarCraft with James Raynor's journey and all that.
Raynor is probably. That might be my favorite character in all of Blizzard.
I like
mythos.
Raynor a lot. I like Kerrigan a lot.
Raynor is really well realized. He feels like a person that could exist.
Yeah.
So does Sarah Kerrigan. You're right. Even though I don't think I could see a person existing that turned into a bug lady.
It goes crazy, it gets out.
But
there.
Jim Raynor is really well realized. A lot of it was influenced by Firefly, I'm sure, but. Yeah, that's a relatable. Thrall's never done it for me. I've never really been a Thrall fan, and I was particularly not a Thrall fan during the Cataclysm into Miss era of Thrall going on his hippie college journey.
I've never found Thrall interesting by himself, but I like him next to Jaina a lot. I like him perhaps in that way because maybe Anduin is servicing a younger Jaina atmosphere. I can see that relationship.
That's a good point. I like what he represents. I would never have a Thrall t-shirt.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Sure. That works for me.
Thrall represents what made orcs unique in in Warcraft, which was that they were not just mindless monsters.
Yeah, he's a standout character there and is fighting his own brethren to build a society that's functional.
Yeah, sometimes politically, sometimes in mortal combat.
So in that way, he's maybe the most interesting, but that also means he's opposite.
But I agree with that. I like that Scott brought up the older versions of the characters where they're more metal, because I hadn't really thought about that, but I do remember really loving that part in, of all things, Warlords of Draenor. I've been on file saying this is my least favorite WoW expansion, and I more or less stand by that. But when Thrall finally kills Garrosh, like, that is such a great moment, and that I like about it, because I do see all those parallels. Like, it's Chris writing himself into these characters, but I like that moment because it's like, but that doesn't mean Metzen doesn't probably still put on some metal in the car. That edge is still there. It's just maybe a little rounded off, but it can still come to the forefront.
I can see that.
So that's why I like that moment.
But certainly the characters that have been around a while, we're trying to kind of find a way to like capture that age up, not necessarily age out, but like, okay, so in that cinematic at BlizzCon, you know, they went in and put like gray streaks in Thrall's hair. I'm like, oh.
It looked great.
It got me. It's like, whoa. And just Anduin, you know, staring you down. It's like, our little boys all grows up, you know, it's
not doing well,
Feel
though.
for him. You're supposed to feel for him, right?
which was the point.
You know
But
he's got
just
it.
the idea that these characters are moving through their own continuum and progressing and moving through stuff. Like, what a trip, you know, looking back from where we started, you know, to the point where these are, you know, fairly fully realized characters within this setting. And it's just incredibly satisfying that way to see that progression. And certainly us as storytellers, as people, you know, as we, you know, it's not necessarily, it is certainly getting older, but it's also just experience over time. You know, big life moments, becoming parents, you know, finding love, finding your career, all these big kind of life, you know, hurdles. It's like, you know, I tell folks all the time, like, don't be afraid to pour yourself into this stuff. You know, even when you're like, oh God, will the people down the hall dig it? You know, will I be judged? Like, yes, probably. But the answer is you're an artist. Go get it, right? Find your truth. Because often when, you know, we're pulling from a place.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Will you get judged? Yeah, probably.
No,
Like,
absolutely.
that is. Yeah.
But you have to make it personal so you care. Otherwise, you're bored.
I didn't think this was gonna be good. I'm gonna be completely honest.
What,
This is
the
pretty
interview?
solid.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I didn't think it was
yeah.
well because it was an official Blizzard product, and their interviews, I think, in the last few years have been really controlled. That's necessarily that they're bad, but I don't like those types of interviews.
It's nebulous.
It's not what I'm interested in.
You could definitely run into this and be like, Fluff Town, he's not saying anything of substance. I'm not getting a hint at the next 3 expansions worth of content.
Well, if that's what you want, yeah.
Yeah, but no, we're not here for that. Like, we've already said once, probably multiple times now, we're already a fan of both these people and sitting them, watching them groove and saying, does that hit for you? Hell yeah, I want to listen to more.
Yeah, who would have thought that 2 guys on the internet like are actually kind of interested in watching 2 guys on the internet talk creatively?
Freaking weird, man.
Of like deeply personal experience, someone's going to feel that on the other end of the line. You know, as you're playing the game, it's like some of those themes that really matter. Whether you're a writer, quest designer, narrative folks, cinematics, you know, like the game design, you know, like everyone kind of pours themselves into their craft, and the more genuine that is, and I think sometimes the more risk you take, I think you get more genuinely affecting content. I think people feel that, they feel you in it one way or another. There are many themes embedded in the Worldsoul saga, evidenced by different characters, that are very pointedly things that I think today, or I'm struggling with today, for sure. But again, I think about it in terms of like, as the team's, you know, creative leader, that's not the job as much. I think the job is like trying to learn to call them out, you know, and challenge them to kind of breathe their own experience into it, as opposed to pouring my own in. So it's a balance.
I assume that's what, over time, you have a character. We'll stick with Thrall for a minute. He's
kind of like
probably
improv.
the most well-known of the Chris Metzen.
Oh, yeah. No,
Like you're trying to make the other guy look good.
yeah. And it's DMing. It's all these things where you want your players to succeed, but they need to be the ones to. I mean, that gives me a lot of hope, because what we saw in Dragonflight, and I was very much of this, you know, outsider perspective looking in and be like, wow, these characters keep talking. Why do they have so much to say? Can't they punch each other? But
That's how I feel right now in other games.
yeah, well, you evolve that passion with the direction. Hopefully you can find that, and it sounds like we're trying to marry what Dragonflight was and this more emotional kind of worldcraft with this older get punched in the face metal kind of vibe.
Well, that's kind of what I'm searching for here before, because at the time of recording that, I know we can go play war with him, but we haven't done it yet. So I don't know, but I want, and it's a subjective want, but I want a better narrative from World of Warcraft. But I don't want it to be so focused on the narrative like how Final Fantasy XIV does its story. I still would like a lot of combat, because now I play both. I would like them to be different. I don't want Final Fantasy XIV to suddenly become World of Warcraft in the way that it tells its story, and I don't want World of Warcraft to suddenly become Final Fantasy XIV in the way that it tells its story. But maybe, you could take a little from each, to shake things up a hair.
Oh, sure. We just played Guild Wars 2 for the first time, and saying that was exploration at its finest, that doesn't make sense unless you played Guild Wars, but you're like, that makes sense. That was excellent exploration. Obviously, he's metering that, though. Like, what he said in here is he came in during the design of War Within.
Dragonflight.
Well, but they were working on War Within. And he now sprinkled, across it story beats that we're going to use for the next 3, but don't necessarily, and this is the warning I'm kind of taking from the interview, don't necessarily enter War Within saying, all right, cool, guns a-blazing, it's the 3-arc story, Chris Metzen's, this is his big opus kind of business. No, like we still have that original team doing their things. He's going to start leading that other story.
That's a good point.
It's certainly voice him. So
until they find somebody better.
Until they find somebody better. Maybe you'll age out of it. I don't know. We're getting there. But no, that you've breathed enough life into that character and given them enough direction over so much time that I have to think in a lot of cases they start to run on their own gas. And while I'm not asking you to tell me if there's any tragedy coming at all, we're not even suggesting it here.
I have a kill list.
Do you?
I've got like my top 12 characters. Like they're all going.
Why is Khadgar at the top of the list?
Please kill Magni.
I kid. I love Khadgar.
There's no kill list.
All right, good. But you know what I mean. You might find yourself going, well, it might be time for character X to take a character dive.
So there's no. I'm kidding. There's no kill list necessarily. But we do talk about this stuff all the time. And the only when you start talking about knocking off main characters. It's not a small thing, and usually that is in service to in the general story you're developing. If you really need to punctuate, dramatic stakes, the easiest thing to do is ask Lucas, blow up a planet, or knock off a main character.
Tyrion Fordling, for example.
Tyrion died like
Remember
a
that?
bitch.
Yeah, I do.
I remember that.
I'm still gripping on that one.
Yeah, that was rough.
Okay, wait, hang on.
Tyrion got no fanfare at all.
That was Wrath of the Lich King?
Beginning of Legion.
Wait, no, Varian died at the start of Legion.
So did Tyrion.
Oh, well, no one cared. What happened?
Exactly, because it happened. First off, it happened right after Varian, so you already don't care.
A little bonus.
Varian got a cutscene. Tyrion is like charging up the beach, and it's like in game. It's not even an in-game cutscene, which at the time weren't that great. It's just straight up in game. You're just like looking at his NPC get like picked up and like and then dies.
Yeah, back when Varian.
That's it.
Back when Varian looked like Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Well, this was moments after Varian died.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not making a joke about it melting. I'm saying his face literally looked like a piece of cinnamon toast.
Oh, 100%.
With
I
the
love
taste
it.
you can see across it.
100%. I don't care. I love it. I love
Yeah.
how Varian looks. Tyrion went out like a bitch.
So he just died in game, like and
a
then
random big monster.
huh.
Not even a named character.
I mean, that's
Not
interesting.
even Gul'dan.
What an experiment. But as he says, like,
I was very invested in
costly.
Tyrion. I liked Wrath of the Lich King. Tyrion is, if you haven't played Wrath of the Lich King, Tyrion is the only named character up at the peak of Ice Crown with you against Arthas.
he's the brother to the guy on the throne, flame guy.
No.
Oh, okay.
Wait. Is he? It's Bolvar Fordragon. No.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Fordring.
Oh,
How would you ever?
Excuse
How
me.
would you ever? No, no.
Years of confusion.
He's just like a really important paladin.
Okay.
No pressure, though. I'm just saying it was a rough moment.
No pressure. So we do talk about it from time to time, but we try and frame it with the greatest gravity possible and trying to be clear that
This part was great.
this franchise has another 20 years in it. It's this big ongoing idea, and losing critical
part was less
characters
great.
is costly. So it's we talk about it from time to time. I won't tell you we won't lose anybody over the arc of the saga. Those types of moments are all about establishing stakes and that.
Does Altat die or become our frenemy?
What? Wait, what? Okay, I'm so far removed, but why would she ever she's not even real? She's a spirit that lives in bodies? Like,
I
why?
mean, she's as real as a character
but
gets.
she loves the void and she works for Demosius or whatever his name is. Like, why? What purpose would that serve? She's literally
It happens in Warcraft all the
made
time.
of void
all the
and
time.
serves the big void walker made of
But
void.
but death or dies or continues on. And
Sure, after strange years, even death may die.
It's such a popular character.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. We have too many Boy Scouts. I need somebody with an edge on the good side.
No, you got Sylvanas' sister. She's, I'm using the dark
I do
side
like
for-
Illyria.
for
That's
good.
okay. Yeah, that's a great counterpoint. I do
corrupted
like
by that.
Illyria's like of characters that's currently in play. Illyria and Jaina.
She's got a mysterious.
Not really into anyone else.
I think that's okay. Well, that's why new characters. Hopefully, new characters.
Okay, all right.
Emotional, engagement from the player ultimately. So,
Does it help populate the Worldsoul saga as a creative place to know that over the last few years, while you were gone for much of it, the team has made a real effort or a priority out of having allied races discovered in the world that players can not only unlock but then be and might prefer over the originals or whatever. Like this additional diversity for choice
Zandalari
seems like a
so
really
cool.
potent way to fill your world with more interesting characterization rather than just, well, it's orcs and humans and a few others.
yeah, I love it. Just old school D&D and all these options on player expression, what kind of what culture you want to be from. I love that kind of stuff. So opening that up, especially like Battle for Azeroth and the inclusion of all these new silhouettes and flavors or whatever, I thought was awesome actually. And even the ones I didn't think I would play, I wound up, I rolled a Volpera hunter, and then I consistently dress him like Robin Hood from the old Disney movie. So it's like I actually really dig a lot of the flavors that have been added over time.
I would never have called that
in my
in a million
opinion,
years.
the water's warm. Everybody in the pool. I think WoW can stretch and grow to encapsulate all of these flavors. I think giving players more options, more visual options is awesome. At the end of the day, I think erring on the side of player choice, player agency is the right move. Like why you're playing this game in the first place, right? When you imprint, especially when it's your character, when you imprint on a look or a vibe or like a vision that you connect with, it's like go get it.
So let's bring it full circle to what is imminent, which is the war within. Players have a lot of expectations. Some of it is based on just excitement because there is a 3-part saga coming. They're not used to that. There's a whole new structure to this. So what would you say to players who are pins and needles about this next expansion, the start of the big grand story?
As we were talking about earlier, we've never been in a situation where we've shaped the whole giddy up, all at once. So there's the adventure component of the War Within, and then there's the max level campaign, and then there's the subsequent patches, and it's all been designed to kind of play out over time.
It was by
Narrative
design.
threads and sinews, kind of linking everything together. I personally a little biased, but I think it's off the hook, right? At the end of the day, I would want people to remember it is still only, however, part one of a much larger narrative. And I would want people to look at it that way. It's meant to rise and crescendo with its own max level campaign.
Will I be expected to walk in Quest 1 and yank the sword from the planet?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I would say to that, I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, the sword, the resolution of the sword that we started with at BlizzCon, actually, that's a 13 thing. We're going to build to that, and it's a doozy.
One does not simply yank a sword from Azeroth.
I would even say you are not prepared for that moment, and leave it at that. But it is a 13.
Is that an Illidan?
13? Yeah, he was doing an Illidan quote. 13 would be the expansion, right? He's saying this expansion, number 13.
Oh God, I haven't counted them.
You want to try?
Jesus, just give me a second.
Because
here.
he's mentioned,
Wow,
up to
expansion.
17 they're planning.
Order.
Wow.
These are not in order, which is annoying me.
Okay, Vanilla, BC, Wrath of the Lich King,
Well, okay, Wrath of the Lich King.
Cataclysm.
Mists of Pandaria.
Yeah.
Warlords of Draenor. What was that?
Legion.
Legion. Shadowlands.
No, Battle for Azeroth.
Battle for Azeroth. Ooh.
Shadowlands.
I actually like BFA. Shadowlands. Dragonflight. We're at 10.
So we're at 11. So
11,
okay, so the sword
12, 13.
is
So sword's the final
2,
expansion.
2 out.
That's kind of a bummer to hear. Although it makes sense. The last one's called The Last Titan. The Last Titan has got to be a reference to Azeroth. You're not yanking the sword without causing damage to the world soul of the planet that it is plunged into.
Okay,
So that all makes sense. Okay. All right. Because like one of my biggest concerns about this, and one of the things that I love, and we've talked about on and on and on and on and on and on about Final Fantasy XIV's MSQ, is that at the end of the box products expansion that you buy, there is closure.
Right, you get a big story
They have
moment.
told a full arc. There's more story to tell, but there's a comfortable arc.
When you reach max level, basically.
My biggest issue with World of Warcraft, with pretty much everything after Wrath of the Lich King, is it's everything seems to be to set up the next thing, as opposed to making you feel like you actually accomplished something heroic and can rest for a little bit.
Well, let's see what he's still saying 13.
Okay.
Issue. Ultimately, you know, things like Xalatath, we've been doing a lot of work to kind of build her up as a very different
that's such
kind
a
of
cool
villain. She is not like a Deathwing type, you know, villain where, you know, just he's flying and burning everything and like, oh crap, you know, we're gonna, you know, like clearly he's
Just say burning
where the
anything in the
storyline
countryside.
ends. She's built in such a way that like we're
I
gonna
need to watch those animatics.
be confronted by her and face her multiple times over the arc of the saga. So it's not going to be this, you know, one and done type like, oh, you know, she's the raid boss. You know, she's meant to, you know, kind of weave in and out of events over time. So that's something I would say. But definitely the sword thing sticks in my head. You know, like certain of these themes are built to play out over time. So I hope people are into that. I hope they're into, you know, a longer form engagement. Because in a way, you know, so many of our expectations kind of, you know, crystallize around like, well, wait a minute, I didn't get the full meal I was expecting in 11.0. It's not built to be that. It's built to be part one. So buckle up. You know, the ride will be,
Okay,
I
I'm a
hope,
little concerned here in that.
insane and insanely fulfilling. Going back to that promise of the 20th anniversary of World of Warcraft, like, I want this saga to feel like it is just the perfect crescendo of 20 years of storytelling, you know, as we said at BlizzCon.
Yeah, there is a sense that we are fulfilling something. The 20 years came and will end this November. I guess November's launch, right? Yeah, 20-year anniversary will be this November. Yeah. And there is a feeling, I can tell you from the player side, of really coming to something special. And I know that puts pressure on the team when players collectively have an idea that they think should happen, and then the team's like, well, we're kind of going a different way. But I don't know that I've felt this much positive feedback in a long time about just where things are headed. And nobody says that about a 20-year-old property usually. Usually we're like,
There's not a
we're
lot of
kinda
precedent we have, right? Like that's the same contiguous project. There's plenty of game, you know.
Yeah.
What else has gone on that long? You have James Bond, which just resets when it
you
feels like
reset
it.
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah, in a linear
Star Wars?
fashion, no, you constantly reset.
Star Wars. Star Wars hasn't really reset.
But that's not linear. We keep going back
We
and
went
forth
back and forth, and they
forth.
jump around a lot.
Yeah, they pick their time period.
Yeah, I guess just other MMOs.
I mean, like maybe, but X-Men's had relaunches. X-Men would be the closest thing with
that's also
Patrick Stewart.
Oh, you're talking
To
about
Logan,
you're talking about the
in terms
Fox
of
era
years,
X-Men
yeah.
films. Yeah, and that even gets picked up.
Hugh
in,
Jackman would be like the through line of it all.
That even gets picked up in Deadpool and Wolverine. That you need to see a movie. It is a love letter to the Fox era,
Nice.
which is wild. Like, but yeah, man. Like, what was Doctor Who? Okay. Doctor Who. Doctor Who doesn't really care.
That is a weird one, but yeah, you are technically correct. That's
No
kinda correct.
ongoing fiction cares less about its own backstory than Doctor
But
Who.
it is linear.
Yeah.
Oh, well done.
Game series run for 20 years, no question. But like, it is honestly a blessing and often sometimes a hindrance. Just trying to sift through the sheer volume of all of these details. Poor Sean Copeland, right? Just trying to keep it all, make it all make sense.
Who's Sean Copeland?
I don't know. I just think anytime you feel bad for a colleague, it's funny.
But it is also its principal strength, particularly because it's an MMO and a video game, because you've lived these moments. You didn't just passively watch. You didn't just, read a book or watch a movie. You've lived these moments and they matter and there are stakes, so as complex as it is to try and push the world forward without breaking everything that came before, which is its own kind of challenge. It's a very noble challenge, right? It's a privilege to tread water in this complexity of this setting after all of these years. It's amazing that it's still the same stakes. It's still the same world that you've always known.
Well, there's a future I see where you're, reclining in some sort of chair.
With the blanket over my
Blanket
knees,
over your
sitting by a
knees,
fire,
keeping you warm, and you're looking back and you're thinking,
telling kids to stay off my
wow.
lawn. I
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
I know.
And they're all in their haptic suits playing whatever version of WoW they have, and looking back at Grandpa's
WoW
accomplishments, and I
rebuilt in
think
Roblox.
it looks like something to be pretty proud of already. Well, I, for one, could not be more excited about this next expansion and the entirety of the Worldsoul Saga, and I think you and your team should be proud, and I wish you guys nothing but luck in the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, Scott. It was good fun. That was hard. We're never gonna get that.
I love those guys.
Yeah, no, it's the best one they've done of this kind of new thing.
Yeah.
The WoW cast, I guess they're calling it. WoW
How
cast.
do we switch back to full screen?
Go to Solo Kyle.
Solo Kyle. There it is.
it's
Yeah.
my house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was. I'm biased. I like both those men quite a bit. I know Scott quite well. I've been lucky enough to chat to Chris a couple of times. He's a really nice guy. But yeah, I don't know. I hope I seemed balanced enough with my whole like, oh, thank God it's not a scripted, Blizzard commercial.
The practice.
It's clearly still
Yeah.
a promotional piece.
But I will find the practice of creative director always fascinating, and I'm
Yeah.
constantly in awe of that process. So it's cool at any point to see a little bit of behind the scenes on
We
it.
take a lot from that in what we do, because it probably doesn't seem like it because we're professionally jackasses on the internet for
Sure.
money, but
Yeah.
but we do put a lot of thought
There's a
into
lot of planning.
what's our trajectory for the next however long amount of time. What do we think is going to make people excited?
Being silly is a lot of work.
Being silly with purpose. Being silly with purpose is a lot of work. So yeah, I get inspired by this kind of stuff, and I want it to stay inspiring.
If it needs to be said, a healthier MMO economy, dichotomy is going to be when there's multiple MMOs vying for top spot and competing to see who can.
I think we're in
do
it right
better.
now.
Yeah.
I think we're like legitimately in it right now. I think 14 is the best it's ever been. Obviously, like some people, Dontrell's not hitting, but it seems like it's hitting on the
end game
tail
side,
of it,
yeah.
which is the really for like when it comes to an MMO. I think that's the more important part because that's what's going to keep people engaged, so that they care enough for the next thing that you do. I'm doubtless that there's fans that like the story enough that you'd probably go back to Final Fantasy 14 even if you absolutely abhorred the battle content. But I think for the vast majority, that type of game, you need to make people care kind of the whole time. So yeah, like 14's a heavy hitter. World of Warcraft's a heavy hitter. Guild Wars 2. I can't believe how many damn people are in that game.
Yeah, it was big.
It's
it was
ridiculous.
alive.
And then you have ESO and you have Fallout 76 seeing its biggest popularity in the history of that game's existence.
That's true.
Like online games are doing really well. Warframe's doing great. The Destiny, it hurts to think about. I'm just bummed. About
Regardless,
what's happening over
people,
that.
people
And that's
want-
not an MMO. That's an MMO. Those are MMO adjacent things.
Yeah, but
they're-
people want to be a part of something, whether it's
Yeah.
an MMO light, whether it's just
Yeah.
something like Valheim or V Rising. People love creating inside of a world and being a part of that as part of their escape, their craft, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hope lying on World of Warcraft that it can maybe retrieve previous glory or just push this MMO project further towards that glorious new dawn that we'd love
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah, I love these kinds of games. I don't always love an individual one of these games at certain times. Depends if I think they're doing a good job or not. And for a long time, I don't think WoW's been doing a good job. But I'm always willing to give a game another shot because it's my time.
And I've been
It's
wrong.
not that precious.
I've been wrong.
I spent this much of my time playing video games, and you've been wrong. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of things for me personally in my personal taste that is stacked against. I think the War Within, like Titans, are really low on my give a care for Warcraft lore.
That's why I'm playing as a dwarf.
Oh man, you couldn't pay me.
But that's why, like, now I'm on that level, height wise and lore wise. and I'm gonna be.
You think you're really? I can't imagine you sticking with the dwarf.
I don't think there's gonna be like a bunch of custom lines for me, but it'll just help me care of one of the 3 zones. I already love spider people, so that's just gonna be fine. I love spider people.
I don't need my character to play into what's happening. I need to really like my character. That's more important to me.
That's fair. Well,
So that's why I'm either
my
gonna,
test.
I'm either going to be a night elf or a Eridar customized Draenei because they're just so cool. I didn't know that was an option. It's probably been in the game for a while. I just realized it was a thing.
Legion, I think.
But yeah, I don't know. I want to give it a shot, and it's interesting again that they're so focused on the narrative of World of Warcraft that has just never really been a thing. We made Wrath about the narrative because everyone was just so into Arthas.
We did this.
Well, like players,
Yeah.
like players made that, but like it, and they now I guess I don't know, this is a longer thought, but I guess Wrath was where they had their first big. That's when Terran Gregory hit the scene, and they were doing their own in-house machinima with the Wrathgate. That's the first time we ever got a cutscene like that in game. So that's untrue. It wasn't entirely on us. They were kind of meeting the fervor in game. So I guess it's not entirely true. But this, to me, is someone who's been playing since vanilla. This is the biggest focus I've ever seen on story, and I'm not used to it. And the timing is wild for my personal journey, having just beaten Endwalker over in Final Fantasy Land. So anyway,
Let's see. Let's see what happens.
I like that. They should do more of that. Do more Wildcasts. Be nice to Scott.